So, let's talk about what it means to be elusive and how we really want to be playing this matchup and when we realized we're just going to get hushed and lose. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and click the pass button here and mulligan very aggressively out of this hand because he's attacking on odds and our duo is going to die if we just play it right away. So, the elusive keyword is a very, very special keyword. What it means is that the elusive can only be blocked by another elusive unit. Basically, it's the same exact thing as flying from Magic the Gathering. But it's a lot more powerful in this game for a couple of reasons. Because you attack on the same turn you play, there's no summoning sickness in this game. There's actually a lot of really scary potential that these elusive cards can do. How often is he skipping turn 2? Yeah, very uncommonly. Okay. So, you'll also notice that this deck is running 0 champions. I saw some people pointing that out. So, the other nice thing about Legends of Runeterra, which allows for, like, you know, budget decks to perform very well, is, like, in basically every meta we've seen, there have been very good, like, no champion decks, right? And this is a pretty good deck that actually wants to run no champions. There's no champions that help this deck at all. And because of that, it's cheaper than it kind of normally would be, which is great. So, he just played another challenger unit. Again, this means it can dictate combat. And I have a pretty good pass here, right? He can pass back. He has a choice here to either pass back and lock me out of the turn or attack, which gives me an action here. And I'm just going to go ahead and skip this block and save my blocker for later. So because he chose to attack, I now get to play out my Shadow Assassin. Whereas I couldn't play the Shadow Assassin before his attack because his challenger unit would kill it for free. And I don't want that to happen. So challengers can sometimes be used, if you had wanted to lock player out of the round, if they try to play a unit after the challenger. Okay, so in this case, we're just going to slow play, basically. We're going to go ahead and play another Shadow Assassin and deal a little bit of chip damage while collecting resources. You guys, honestly, I was going to tell you guys how this deck works, but I'll just show you. It's going to be much, much better. So these are elusive, they're unblockable, so we get in free damage. He's got a pretty scary board. Let's go ahead and play our Hapless Aristocrat here. This card is just a great blocker because it's a 1-mana 1/1 that summons a 1-mana 1/1 when it dies. So it's kind of like 2 blockers in 1. We use these for what we call chump blocking, which is the idea of just using tiny blockers to neutralize entire attacks.
Bad for the teeth, though.
This guy's board is really scary and my hand is really bad. Oh, Jesus. So I basically am forced to Vile Feast this, and it's kind of sad because I get pretty punished by Ranger's Resolve, which is a very easy card for him to have here, but I can't do anything about that. In this case, I have to take a risk. I don't have the luxury that I had in the game 2 games ago where I wanted to play it safe because I could afford to play around a card. When your back's to a wall, you can't really afford to play around stuff, as a rule of thumb. Do you run Ruination in this deck? No, I've thought about it, and I know it sounds like super cool in this deck, but it doesn't end up making enough sense, unfortunately. So we can go ahead and block out an attack for free here. His challenger unit will kill one of my elusives for free, and my block here will stop 3 damage, which is kind of the most that this single block can do. I think my other blocks will be able to stop more than 2, so I'm actually going to go ahead and save these blockers for later. But yeah, we have a hand that has a good amount of stall in it, but the biggest problem with this hand is we don't have enough draw or cycle. We haven't drawn any Glimpse Beyonds or any Stalking Shadows yet. Or even an Encroaching Shadows, or even more elusives. I'm actually not 100% sure that I mulliganed properly, by the way. It's debatable that I should have kept like 1 Green Glade Duo in the opening hand. Okay, so I can go ahead and play a Silent Shadow Seer here. This is basically not really doing very much, but it's developing a little bit of chip potential. So what this does as a card is every time it strikes the Nexus, it creates a copy of itself in hand, which means if he doesn't do anything to kill this card, which he would have to play a spell, single combat usually in this case. Single combat's going to go ahead and kill this card, and if he doesn't, then he has no ability to actually stop the Shadow Seer from being deployed and attacked every turn. Alright, so we do have a lot of stall, like we can just kind of wait until we top deck more options. Like, he doesn't really have a board threat yet. I guess his entire deck is built around, like, Mountain Sojourners, and he just hasn't really drawn it yet. And his hand range is actually pretty narrow because he's only got one face down that he's not top decking, which is very good for us. Hand range is basically a concept from poker, and it's the idea of trying to guess what your opponent has, right? We are going to have a really miserable time against a specific card called Hush, which the fact that he was only on one face down lowers the likelihood of, so that's a good thing. Okay, we've got a few elusives now. Still I mean, it's an improvement to the hand, but it's non-ideal, for sure.
No time to rest.
Odds and fair. Aha. Odds and fair. Aha.
So yeah, we basically are gonna have about 4 more natural draws. A pretty good strategy in this game is to sort of like think about your future plans in terms of time to kill, right? Nexus health isn't really supposed to be your focus. It's more about like how many turns do you have the ability to stay alive for, right? That's kind of what we have to be asking ourselves. And we can probably block 1 more of his attacks freely, and that means we have about 3 turns to be able to draw into our combo killer, which we have a lot of hits for because our entire deck is combo stuff or stuff that draws into combo stuff. Or stall chump blockers like this. Okay, that's a great draw. It's, again, this card we've seen before. It just cheaply plays itself and draws another card. See, this is kind of perfect. We're like drawing into our draw package. And again, he's on a very narrow hand range. So unless this card over here is Hush, I'm in very, very good shape. Keep in mind, cards from the left are ones he's top decking every turn. They're completely random. Cards from this card he's had since turn 1, which means it's probably something like, it could be a second Genevieve, it could be something like a Hush, it could be a second single combat, right? That kind of thing. Something he wouldn't have had a chance to really play yet. Okay, so what we want to do here is we just want to allow for more draws, basically, right? So we can start off by using Glimpse. Actually, I think we probably want to use Glimpse on defense to try to survive an extra turn. Wow, this is actually super interesting. There's a chance we might need to kill him this turn, because he also can threaten a very scary card called Relentless Pursuit. That's another card this can be, which is a very powerful Demacia card that gives him an attack token. It's a spell. So if I don't kill him this turn, he could actually potentially attack me twice next turn, and that would be very, 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 very scary. How much damage do I have right now on my elusives? Hang on, math time. So as duo, we're playing 4 units, duo's 6. These are 2s, this is 2, 6. We have enough mana for everything. We do have enough mana for, I mean, the 0 mana Islander. 4 for 6. So we are short on our ability to kill him. We're actually just outside of the kill range here. So we're gonna basically slow play, right? Is kind of the idea. We only have a total of 13 damage in this hand, and we need 16 to kill him. So what that means is we really have to be thinking about our clock, right? So what we want to think about is like, how can we survive 1 more turn at any cost, right? Like Silent Shadows here is a great offensive card here, but because we don't need very much help and we're just outside of the offensive range, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to play Navori Highwayman. This is a defensive card. It's just summoning 2 body blockers, right? And this is kind of like the importance of clock as a concept. It's not about health. It's all just turns to kill. And because we can't kill him this turn, our top priority is surviving 1 more turn. That's our top priority. So we really have to play for the Navori Highwayman and try to make sure we're killing him on, you know, that extra chance we have, right? We're giving ourselves an extra chance to kill him by giving ourselves more blockers. So I'll take this free 2 damage that we have here and just keep our resources in our hand. And this is beautiful. This is absolutely perfect for us. He just deleted his hand range. His card was second single combat, which is one of the cards we mentioned it could have been. And now, not only is it not Hush, but it's not Relentless Pursuit. So now what we need to do is develop these blockers and survive 1 more attack, and that's not going to be too hard. Although, it would help to, like, I mean, we're short on lethal, but our 2 draws is almost certainly going to get us there. And there it is. Okay. So now we have, you know, the Genevieve is going to open attack. She's got Scout. This keyword allows her to attack twice per turn, but only her. It's only if she attacks first alone, which is really powerful. But what we can go ahead and do is we can just stun this out. This effectively deletes both attacks because his unit is stunned for the turn, and my card summons a Tail of the Dragon as well. Now what I can do is play my kind of like combo big finisher. This is a card I'll play out here called Encroaching Shadows, which is a very, very powerful card that buffs everything in my hands, super big, at the cost of making it only live for one turn. All of my cards for the rest of my deck, for the rest of the game, get this ephemeral keyword, which means they only ever live for one turn. Luckily for me, that's all I need, baby. So, I mean, give it your best shot. He's on 2 top decks at this point. He's drawn the left card on his hand, which he drew completely randomly, could be anything, and he's going to have one more chance to top deck an answer to potentially stop me from killing him next turn. It's also possible that the card he just top decked was possibly Relentless Pursuit, which is really scary. I might actually lose to that still. If he's a top deck wizard and actually has it, we might not be able to win against it. So what that means is if it is Relentless Pursuit, let's go ahead and let this 2 damage through to leave as many blockers as we can open. It doesn't matter, but we'll block with the Brigand instead. So we're just kind of making sure we're thinking in terms of time to kill or turns to kill, while simultaneously playing around the maximum amount of things possible and trying to deduce what he could have in his hand based on how he's playing and how he's using things. Alright, so there's only a couple of cards that really beat us out here. Honestly, the funny thing is Relentless Pursuit is still potentially one of them, and that is still something nasty he could play. So let's think a little bit about the situation and see if we can maybe get more total damage through if we Relentless Pursuit. We have a total of 10 mana, and we have 3 Navori Conspirators in hand, which are going to bounce back something a bunch of times, right? Because every time we Navori Conspirator, we get our option back. If he plays Relentless Pursuit on our first action, what that's going to mean is that we no longer have the ability to deploy a second action to try to close out the game. So what that means is the most important thing to do is try to get the Conspirator out now, but the downside of that is we might not have enough damage to play around Hush at that point. Now, we know 2 of his cards can be Hush and only 1 can be Pursuit, so let's try to focus on playing around Hush rather than Pursuit. Hush, unfortunately, hits 4 in this case, and 4 is probably a little too wide. Yeah, 4 is probably a little too wide. There's probably no play around to Hush here. Alright, so we can go ahead and open it up with Navori Conspirator. We're going to count the 8 we have in our hand. We have a total of 5 mana in our hand, plus the 3 from playing the Blade Scout literally 3 times. So we're just going to go ahead and do that now. So we counted up our mana. We realized we have to play the Blade Scout first to be able to play the Navori Conspirators. It seems pretty likely that he did actually top deck into his Hush here, which would be quite the feat, because his deck shouldn't really be running too many. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and basically jack up our damage here. And he's realizing he can't possibly win anymore and takes the concede. So I would say, like, the single biggest thing about that game is just the value of thinking in terms of, like, time to kill, right? When we had that choice of going for the defensive option or the offensive option, we just have to go defensive, because even though our deck wants to be offensive, we're slightly close to killing him. We're so close to killing him that if we choose the defensive option and let our 2 top decks do the rest, we have great odds of not affecting our turn to kill, but by choosing defensive, we can affect his, right?